Hello again, YouTube. Right, okay, real quick one today, just to show you something that a little technique I cooked up today that could be useful to you. So, very long story short, I had a rear derailleur cable on my mountain bike that looked pretty much like this. The little end cap had come off, and like we all know what happens then, like all the wires fray, so you end up with this like mess at the end. So I thought to myself, what do you do with that? Well, I mean, the simple answer is you recable the bike and you put an end cap on it, or you just leave it and hope it doesn't get any worse. But if you leave it, it is going to get worse. So I wanted to come up with a solution where I could just tidy it up, and here's what I came up with. So I keep in my toolbox, because I tend to fiddle around with cars and electrics and all sorts of things, I keep a set of this Heatshrink tubing, and it's really good stuff. And I mean, that whole box, 750 pieces, only, well, it cost me less than a tenner on Amazon. So I thoroughly recommend keeping this in your toolbox. And here's the solution I came up with for tidying up the end of this cable. But whilst I was doing it, I cooked up another solution, thinking ahead for a job that I'm going to have to do on the Planet X at some point. So, let's get into tidying up this cable to begin with. So essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the Heatshrink to tidy up the end of this cable and then crimp a end cap onto it. So the way that this works is you find yourself a piece of Heatshrink from your kit that's just slightly wider than the diameter of your cable. Now what you need to do is you need to take those frayed ends and twist them as well as you can back together. They will go back together. Pinch the ends together and then carefully slip this on. Okay, so you can now see what I've done there. Just making sure we're focused. So you can now see what we've done there is we've taken our Heatshrink and we slipped it over the untidy ends. And I'm going to take my little heat torch here and shrink that on. It's got a 2-to-1 shrink ratio, this stuff, so it should bind. If you get a little piece of it that's really only marginally thicker or only marginally wider than the cable you're going to put it onto, you'll find it binds really quickly. Okay, so now just going to take my cable clippers, or cutters rather. What we've got there is, let me take you in. So what we've got there is a lovely clean tidy end that I can then slip an end cap over and crimp this little baby on. Job's a good one. And I really like this little sleeve bit at the end. I think it looks really nice. So, okay, so that's use 1 for Heatshrink. Let me show you use 2. Okay, so let's say that you've got an internally cabled bike like the Planet X Pro Carbon Evo that I've got. Now, if you need to recable the bike, which you'll probably want to do at least once a year if you're getting any decent miles in, you've got that that problem of how do I drag a cable through the frame? And ideally what you'd want is you'd want to, in my head at least, attach your new cable to your existing cable and then just use the existing cable to pull the new cable through the frame. And you can do that with Heatshrink. So let me show you this. Okay, so let's imagine that that end there is the existing cable in our bike, okay? So this could be at your rear derailleur or wherever. So cut it so you've got a nice tidy end there. Then take your handy dandy piece of heat shrink, slip it over. So let's say that this is your new cable that you want to drag through. Slip that into the other end. Okay. Take my heat torch, and I'm just going to shrink this cable down, this heat shrink down onto the cables. Do try and get this, when you're shrinking it, try and get it from all directions. Okay. Now before you do anything with this, let it cool down, because the heat shrink will be quite malleable after you've heated it up, but it will then harden a little bit at least. Okay, so that's quite cool. So now what I've got is enough tension on that cable that I can pull my cable through. Don't know if you can see, but I'm sort of pinching from the other end there to simulate a little bit of resistance. And the really good thing about this is that look at that joint, it's no wider than the cable you're pulling through, so it's not going to get hung up on anything, and there's plenty of grip there to pull the cable through. So there you have it, a couple, in my opinion, of really useful uses for heat shrink on your bicycle. Thanks for watching. I've got another video coming up, my thoughts on the Phoenix 5 after, well, I said it was going to be a month, but it's going to be more than a month of use. So watch out for that one coming up, and there's a couple of other videos in the making at the moment. Don't know if they'll get out this side of Christmas, so if they don't, happy Christmas, and thanks for subscribing, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Thank you, YouTube.